What's up, grinders? So I was planning to put together a video about my favorite YouTube resources for learning Chinese, like literally just channels where you can get content. When I don't know what happened, YouTube must have been sitting here with the microphone open, secretly listening to me, because it started recommending me videos about this topic, and here is one of them which literally dropped yesterday about how I learned Chinese by watching YouTube and how you can too. And this is a channel I've never seen before, and as you guys know, I like to review channels and videos here, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, as part of this review, I'm going to see if I can inject these resources and possibly also keep this a bit more generic, because there's obviously a lot of you out there who are just, learning different languages, and, Chinese is not specifically the language that you're looking at. So let's check this out. Hopefully it's a good one, because I've had some shocker video reviews recently. Let's begin.
So we've all heard that YouTube is the secret immersion strategy. Unfortunately, most people consume YouTube thinking they are learning, but actually nothing is getting in the brains. How do I find content suited for me, or comprehensible input? How do I...
Okay, so this is going to be a comprehensible input video. A lot of the resources that I do recommend people watch and check out is actually comprehensible input videos, because most grammar guide videos and stuff I don't really find that interesting per se, although I do recommend that you do learn grammar and you learn these things, but I just find the videos just to be not really that helpful, because they just rehash what articles do, and you can get everything you need from articles pretty much. But what she did mention there about, people watching a lot of content and actually not getting anything from it is something, it's one of my biggest gripes with a lot of comprehensible input style methodologies, where you rely on input purely, because you do very quickly enter a phase where you'll be watching, you'll be following along, and you'll just phase out everything you don't understand, and you'll just get enough to understand what's going on, and you think you're learning, but you're really not, because you're kind of not like focused listening and really trying to pick out, the words that you haven't learned before. And you could sit there for 4 hours, watch content, and realistically walk away with nothing, because you didn't really actively listen and try to figure out what was going on. You were just more like hitting the generic points of each video.
Ensure that it gets in my brain. So in this video, we're going to be covering all that. I've been trying to figure...
Just so you know, every time I watch videos, they are sped up a little bit. Otherwise, my reviews would take over an hour. So she's not actually this fast.
...this out for a long time. Recently, I've been sounding more fluent-ish.
当然，我只想找一个财富的女孩，只要有钱，她就是王道。Joking，我是 Joking。我要怎么迷恋有钱的人
So yeah, if you're interested, let's go. So let's start off with why...
Oh, so yeah, her Chinese didn't sound that bad.
YouTube. In schools, we're taught you have to use textbooks, right? I think textbooks are great to get the basics down, get the basic vocabulary and the grammar. But at some point, you want to spread your wings. Also have a bit more fun.
Yeah, so she's right about that. Textbooks are good for just getting the basic grammar and stuff, but you don't even really need textbooks. There's plenty of just wikis out there that will just explain different grammar points.
Yeah, with textbooks is that they're all just word. Maybe there are some books where there's pictures, but I'm not seeing that. So I'm just diligently doing all the grammar exercises, and man, it's so boring. In textbooks as
Yeah, well, a better way of doing this would be to just pick out actual phrases that you don't understand and break them down, and even use an AI system like ChatGPT or something to look up what those specific structures actually mean, and then ask for more examples.
As well, there's a knowledge cap, because you're following a rigid syllabus. They might be teaching you vocabulary of stuff that you don't really care about. And it's only when I started reaching out for native content did I start encountering words that I'm like, damn, I want to use that in my sentence. Also, you want a strategy that can allow you to study for long periods of time. With textbooks, because it's boring, I'll just do 30 minutes and bye, I'm done. I mean, YouTube's content is endless, and out of all of the other social media...
I've actually got a video coming up in the next few days where I'm going to try to do the maximum amount of comprehensible input possible in one day. I actually haven't started filming it, but it is going to come up in the next few days, because I've got a whole day set aside for it.
Platforms, you get long form content, which means you can stay on there even longer. I mean, my screen time is just YouTube. But this means that there's content for all of you, regardless of your level. You can be beginner, intermediate, advanced. For Japanese, I'm beginner. I use Pepe Sensei. Mandarin, I'm a bit more advanced. I like to say I'm advanced, but really I'm intermediate. Anyway, but I use these types of content.
So these channels here, I've never checked them out before, but they don't really look like the type of channel that would interest me anyway.
content. For Korean, I just do karaoke on YouTube because I'm very beginner and I just want to do pronunciation. 300,000 hours of content gets uploaded on YouTube per hour, and it's just going to increase. You got content for every one of you, and it's also great for people who just want to maintain their language. Let's say you're a polyglot and you have 5 languages.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly drop some of the content that I've used over time. So I've just got randomly a list here. And I'm kind of put it in order. So you've got Little Fox Chinese, Story Learning with Annie, Lazy Chinese, Chinese Mandarin with KK, Chinese Mandarin Cherry, Jun Sticky Note, Chinese Comprehensible Mandarin. That channel there has just got so much content, although the sound quality is pretty bad for a lot of them. Xiaoguo Chinese, Talk Chinese, Hello Chinese, Mandarin Corner, and then you got Da Shu Zhongwen, Zhiyu. And then there's also things on Netflix, like you just literally could just watch stuff like Shrek, The Expanse. It's a TV series. Then there's also just a ton of like Let's Play channels. And basically what you'll do once you get to a more advanced level or an upper intermediary level is just start looking up your interests. Literally type your interest into YouTube. If your interest is exercise, you can just say, Duan Lian, and you'll start finding people that do like vlogs and stuff about it.
If you're focusing on one, you can just use YouTube for the rest of the 4 to get your passive learning. And so in my 10 years of learning Chinese, just so sad to say, learning from YouTube has been my best resource thus far. But maybe you still have some doubts because really, will YouTube just solve all my problems? The thing about learning from YouTube is it also takes a bit of time to find like perfect resources for you. So
yeah, that is very true. You can spend a lot of time just jumping from video to video, actually trying to find something that interests you. So for me, there's very few things that I've found in Chinese that actually interest me, one of them being Let's Plays.
So if you want to skip all of that already, I got the perfect thing for you. LingoPie is a streaming platform that has all your K-pop, variety shows, endless content, just like YouTube, except
LingoPie actually contacted me in the past asking if I would be willing to, run ads for their product on my YouTube channel. So just be aware that this is a sponsorship.
Learners. I personally use LingoPie for Korean and Japanese, but they also have languages for Chinese, French, German, Spanish. Literally last night I was watching Going 17, so I can...
Normally I would jump past this stuff if it was just me. I'd just click ahead until I got past it all. But since I am reviewing someone else's video, it would be disrespectful to jump through this.
Prepare myself for their fan meet. As you watch, you get interactive subtitles. You can click on any word to get its meaning, sentence breakdowns, and its translations.
그러니까, and you can record yourself too. How good am I?
I'm curious to see how big her channel is, actually, because if she's getting sponsorships already... Okay, she's only got 3.15k subs. I wonder how much money she even got offered to do this sponsorship, because, they wouldn't pay you much for such a small channel. I knew they wouldn't pay me much.
So for me personally, I'm putting every word that Hoshi says into a flashcard. This motivates me to do the in-app quizzes because I gotta hear Hoshi's voice. LingoPie saves a flashcard with the clip, so you can hear the word in context, and I can hear Hoshi's voice in my head even more than usual. See him? Sneak cameo.
Oh man, this is a really long sponsorship.
You can increase and decrease the speed, add subtitles, loop things. Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm so gassed to say that you guys get a discount. You guys get a 7-day free trial and 55% off your yearly plan. So what are you waiting for? The discount link is in the description. Okay, check it, just click it. Thank you to LingoPie for sponsoring me. YouTube is very powerful because the amount of input you get is a correlation to how good you will output. If you have no...
Okay. Ooh. Okay, first up. Everyone refers to Krashen's theory, although for the most part it is true. There is definitely issues with this theory, and there is plenty of studies that go against certain aspects of the theory and prove that it's not the only way to learn a language. Just to be aware that you can learn languages in multiple ways. This is not the be-all, the end-all of everything. Input is obviously important, because if you can't understand something, you're not even going to be able to really interact with it. But just be aware that a lot of the people who go the full comprehensible input path, they basically say, well, then the only thing you should ever do is just input until you get to that point where you feel like you can instantly output fully fluent sentences and stuff like that. That is something that really annoys me about the promotion of his specific theories, because there's a lot more to it, realistically. Now, you might be sitting there and going, well, Evildea, it's evident that you are against this. No, I'm not. I'm actually learning Spanish through pure comprehensible input just because I want to see, what it's like as a process. But I've found the best results are realistically a mixture of something like an input-based approach with some form of active study. How you do the active study could be, flashcards. It could be just literally writing down subtitles. There's multiple videos I've reviewed on this channel about how to do active study. There's no one specific method, but the best approach is you get input and then you're also actively studying at the same time.
no idea how the language is supposed to sound in your head. How are you supposed to spew it out? So now that you know why...
Also, I want to mention one thing here, is that she mentioned she was doing Chinese for 10 years, and now she said, I'm finally getting fluent sentences out. I'm assuming then, for the vast majority of that time, what she had been doing was active study, and then she swapped to like a comprehensible input methodology. I could be wrong. Maybe she'll correct me later on. Maybe she'll correct me in the comments, but I get the feeling this is what happens a lot. So people will do a massive period of active study because that's what you're traditionally taught, and they feel like they're getting nowhere. And then at the end, once they've actually learned like a lot of the language, but they can't really utilize it, they'll swap to a big, heavy input approach, and then it all starts coming together, because that's what you should have been doing the whole time along. You should have been doing a lot of input with a lot of active studies.
I like YouTube. Let's finally step through the process together. And by the way, if you're also learning a language, join the language gang. We try to keep it fun here. If you were just about to search up beginner...
I also have a language gang. It's my Discord community, but we're more like a violent mob, and we just randomly attack people. No, I'm joking. We're not like that.
Content for Japanese, what are you doing? You're about to make the same error I made, because very quickly your YouTube account is going to look insanely messy. I had my main YouTube channel, and I started following like my favorite Korean podcasts, like Youngji's Drunk Podcast Show or like Dex Interview. Basically,
that sounds kind of cool, actually.
Everywhere Chaewon went, I followed. Then I was like, maybe I should do Chinese content. So then I'd watch a little bit of some Chinese podcasts, all on the same account, which meant YouTube was recommending me English content, Chinese content, Japanese, Korean content. So instead, we should be directing YouTube rather than just let YouTube...
Yeah, what she's going to suggest here is quite obvious. She's going to say make a separate, like, actual channel, or sorry, like a... not a separate account, but a separate profile for just watching Chinese stuff. I actually did this. It's a good idea, but I'm also very lazy. I can't be bothered doing the whole switch between profiles, so I actually just... it doesn't bother me if I see English mixed with Chinese, mixed with freaking Latin, mixed with, you know, whatever on my actual main account. It really doesn't bother me. I'm just like, man, okay, I'm going to watch this now.
Shove random content in our face. And so the first step I recommend is making different accounts for every language that you want to learn. This means that if you say, hey, today is my Chinese immersion day, you're going to go on your Chinese account and you're only going to get Chinese content. So by separating out my content, I can get less distracted and I can cultivate my own YouTube ecosystem. The next step is, how do we find...
It is a good idea. Like, I do recommend this if you want to seriously just focus on one language. Me, I'm just more a type of person where I just like to see content in all the languages I'm learning.
Content that we enjoy. Because if I'm forcing myself through a video, I might as well just open a textbook, you know? Take a look at your already existing recommendations and interests in your main English channel. So for Chinese, I enjoy watching relationship videos because that's where all the juiciness is. So my usual content is like Cindy Age or...
Those types of videos are like literally hell on earth for me. I just like to see like people killing each other in video games.
Or Ki Choi for her relationship advice. And in the beginning, you're not going to know what the hell is going on. Like, it takes time for YouTube to find the right content for you. But when the YouTube algorithm hits, it hits. I mean, you should know, because if you're watching this video, you've reached the peak of YouTube.
I don't get the joke.
Not useful if I look for beginner podcasts, but you really want to limit how much you search in English. YouTube will realize that you are learning that foreign language and it will start just recommending more English content to you, which we can't have. If you're in the intermediate plateau, the way to break out into advanced is by niching really down into your hobbies. I can assure you, when you...
Totally agree with that statement, 100%. Find like your hobby and just watch tons of content, like obviously in your target language on that hobby, and that will reinforce all the vocabulary of that hobby, and it will be like a smaller subset of the language. And once you've like reinforced that, because like let's say you watch, I don't know, like 100 videos or something in that hobby, you can start expanding out almost in like a parallel manner. So if you're doing video games, you might then expand out, I don't know, into paintball or something, because you're probably going to have a lot of similar terminology.
You first start using YouTube, everything is going to be so overwhelming. Especially if you're in the intermediate stage, you're like, I don't understand anything from native content. But by honing into specific topics, you can build up your vocabulary like little islands. So one can be, for example, beauty. Another can be like shopping. And the trick here is only follow a few content creators that you really like. Because every video that they have is of that specific topic, usually. They use similar sentence structures, similar grammar, which gives you that repetition of vocabulary in different contexts.
That's an interesting point, and probably a valid one. I'd kind of do that, but I never intentionally done it. Like there's this one Let's Player, his name is Yu, and what he basically does is he does a lot of videos with other content creators in the Chinese space, and I've followed pretty much him from one video to the next just because I really like his accent.
very important. Cindy does makeup and lifestyle. These are two very similar topics, which means I can gradually
I'm going to see if I can force myself to randomly watch that channel.
expand my vocabulary that way. But you might still mess up even after finding good videos to watch. Because the next question is, given a video and given a good content creator, how do you now study those words? So a big mistake that I see a lot of people do, they will copy down every sentence that person is writing or everything new in that video. I might have a big forehead, but I still can't fit all of those words
Her forehead has nothing on my forehead.
in my head. And also you can only fit about 10 to 20 new words per day, according to Google. So what you do with your 10 pages of notes. But then how do I know which words to make flashcards for? So when I go through a video, I still note down interesting sentences that I really like. But the key step here is what you do after. As you go,
Okay, so I'll explain what I do because I'm curious to see what she does and I don't want what she does to impact on what I say I do. So what I like to do is I'll watch a video and every now and then I'll keep hearing a word pop up. And I may instantly understand it or I may not. But like I'll hear this reoccurring word that I haven't studied and I'll be like, and I'll just like jot it down. I may do it on phone, may do it on notepad. I've literally got a notepad next to my computer. And then if I hear it enough times, and for me enough times is 6 times, then I will go, okay, I now have enough context to start building sentences out of this. So I'll take the sentences first from the video, then I'll go to like an AI system and I'll generate more sentences based around just that. And then I'll add it into my Anki card system.
go over the sentence that you've written down. Choose 5 sentences that you want to learn. And when I'm choosing these 5, I'm asking myself, is this a sentence that I would use in real life?
If I show you that, will I get demonetized?
Because this will be important for our next step. As you go over these sentences as well, you may also notice like grammar patterns or like rules in speech, and you're building up that backlog.
Wow, so she's actually doing like Chinese writing. Man, she's hardcore. Really good. Like, respect to her type of thing. Like, I can read Chinese, but I don't actually do any written form of Chinese.
You can definitely use ChatGPT to explain it to you. But what I found is, if you just keep seeing these types of grammar rules, you just pick it up naturally. Now we've learned the words.
Yes and no. Like, you may pick it up naturally, but I guarantee you from her active study from the past, she actually learned a lot of these rules, but just didn't know how to implement them. There are certain grammatical patterns where you literally just have to study them in order to actually know how they fit together.
How are we supposed to review them so we remember it forever? It sounds simple, but you just have to interact with that sentence. A lot of other people, they make flashcards, put these sentences in, and then just review them a lot of times. I kind of gave up on flashcards. You get a lot of repetition of these words anyway from like watching a lot of content from YouTube. What I do personally now is basically taking my favorite sentences and then making my own video, which I did an example on this channel. But it all boils down to the basics. You can find your own strategy if you remember what the essence of learning is, which is just repeated exposure to the thing in many different contexts.
Yeah, so here's the difference between flashcards and just pure comprehensible input, like just getting your reviews from watching content. I've now done about 40 hours worth of Spanish pure comprehensible input. And then obviously I've also studied Chinese and a bunch of other languages. What I've noticed is that, yes, you will start picking up words from comprehensible input, like just pure watching content. However, it will take you a lot longer than if you actively just study those words. In fact, what I find pure CI content really good for is reinforcing everything you've already learned and like making it flow together in your own brain a lot better. However, I actually find it quite bad for learning new words. Like maybe for learning nouns and stuff like that, it's quite good. And then also showing you how words are meant to be used, it's quite good. Like seeing a verb used in all these different contexts, you're like, okay, now I've got a better overview about how it works. However, just seeing this verb over and over and over again, it's not that great of a way to like just learn a word. To give you guys an example, and I don't want to like spoil it for you because I do have a Dreaming Spanish video coming out probably in like 2 weeks once I hit 50 hours. But it took me 35 hours from memory to learn the word for how in Spanish. Because like I saw it in all these different contexts, but I just didn't know that that's what it meant in that context. And then one day after like 35 hours worth of content, I was like, oh, that means how? Oh God. Like I didn't even realize that until it just randomly popped into my head after 35 hours. And this was a word that was used in almost every video. So I believe comprehensible input, like the approach that she's taking here of just watching lots of content, is good for reinforcing everything you've learned up to this point. However, it's really slow for picking up completely new words.
So by making my own videos, I'm constantly exposed to these sentences because of the editing process. To get repetition, you can listen to the episodes again and again.
Yeah, so she's making videos, she mentioned, I think, in Chinese, and therefore when she's editing them, she's actually hearing her own feedback, which is really good, like you're reinforcing. However, you want to make sure you've got pretty good pronunciation, just in case you start feeding yourself bad feedback.
But this can get boring, which is why I recommend following specific creators, because the way they speak is very consistent in every video, and they kind of use the words in slightly different contexts each time. So YouTube makes up the biggest chunk of my learning right now, and I'm finding it very valuable. There is a small caveat though, which is YouTube can really tire you out. If you're constantly on YouTube, it can be very draining. So just remember to take a few breaks from watching YouTube, and also leave some room to watch YouTube in English, because we gotta watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, watching a lot of content's pretty crazy, which is why I've got this challenge coming up on, I believe, Sunday my time, where I'm going to do the maximum amount of content possible in one day. But my summary so far, based on my experiences, is that, 20 hours of comprehensible input will teach you, like, in new words, will teach you the equivalent of, say, maybe 2 sessions of active study. Could be 3, but I'd say 2 sessions. So if your goal is to absorb a lot of words rapidly, it's better to just study them with Anki and then watch lots of content. However, if you just want to have a more relaxed process and you've already got a pretty big solid base from like years of study, then yeah, just watching content's great. And you want to aim for content where you've already got above 90% comprehensibility, because your goal here is to find that other very small section that you don't understand the language and then pick that up in context. And in order to pick it up in context, you need to know everything around it for it to just automatically be like, oh, okay, this is what it means. Because if it's less than, say, 90%, there's too much you don't know and you're not going to get that context.
Wind down sometimes. So in this video, I kind of talked about more active ways of studying, but in my next video, I'm going to talk more about more passive ways of learning a language for people who are very busy or for people who just want to maintain a few languages. So keep an eye out for that. If you're interested in using LingoPie, the link will be in the description below. And finally, I know a lot of people are struggling between, should I choose Korean, Japanese, Mandarin? I made a video on that you might like. But remember to take it chill.
Oh, that's an easy choice for me. So Chinese obviously is my family. I would choose Korean for the next language, but I would do something crazy and spastic like learn the North Korean dialect just so I could walk around Seoul one day talking with the wrong dialect. And then, of course, if I'm going to go do Japanese, it's going to be for the crazy anime.
And enjoy the process. And you don't have to struggle alone. You can join the language struggle gang. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so overall, this is a very good video. However, I feel there was a part that was missed out here where she could have clarified. Maybe she's clarified in other videos, because this is just one single video. And that's the fact I feel like she probably did a lot of years of active study before moving into a comprehensible input path. And then that background, that solid foundation she already had, helped a lot with just pure input. So I recommend somewhere between, say, 70 and 80% of like input, depending. It really depends. So if you're at the beginning of the language, like you're right at the beginning of your language learning journey, you will want to do a lot more active study than you will want to do pure input. And then as you progress in a language, it's going to start offsetting. So basically around the intermediate stage, you want to be like, 50% input, 50% like active study. And then once you start getting to like an upper intermediate and then more advanced, you're basically going to swap to almost a pure input, because you can just learn what you need now from context and you're going to enjoy it a lot more. However, starting from the very start with a pure input methodology, which I've done with Dreaming Spanish as a trial, it's just so insanely slow. Like, I am talking unfathomably slow. You will get more information about that when I hit my 50 hours with the Dreaming Spanish video. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, I reckon overall this is a pretty good video, just that one little critique. So I think I'll probably chuck this into, the good language learning advice section of my channel. And I'll see you all in the next video. And if there's any videos you guys want me to review, drop them in the comments below.